What do you get when you mix a health coach and a wellness coach mixed with a lot of curiosity? You get two people who ask a lot of questions about health and wellness. Today we ask, how is breathwork connected to our health and weight?
Today we interview Alyse Bacine, a breathwork and trauma expert. So let's get started as we ask.
Wait, what? Hi, Kamna.
Hi, Leah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
I am actually really ready to dive in. How about you?
I am too.
Okay.
I have 1,000 questions already. When I read her bio, I was ready to just ask a bunch of questions, and then you're going to read it and I'm going to want to stop you, and I promise I won't. I'll let you finish. I have my notebook here, so I'm going to write down my questions as you read it out loud.
Okay,
All right,
perfect.
go for it.
Alyse Bacine is a breathwork and trauma expert with 23 years of experience. She's a spiritual mentor and the CEO of Alyse Breathes LLC. She has her master's degree in counseling, psychology, and certifications in both social emotional learning and mindfulness practices, as well as extensive background in the mental health field. Knowing that she always wanted to expand her mission of healing familial and ancestral trauma and normalizing meditation and breathwork practices, she opened her own business and quickly became a six-figure mentor. Alyse has been featured in top publications like Oprah Magazine, Well and Good, and Nylon. Alyse uses her unique healing modality, the metamorphosis method, to help spiritually intelligent women transfer their current realities to get their next level selves. I got that out. Sorry. Her programs are deeply rooted in healing so that women can navigate work, love, and life as powerful leaders without the burden of trauma playing a role in their highest potential.
Oh, gosh.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hi, Alyse.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay.
That's quite the resume.
Yeah. And
it's always funny when people read your bio. I'm like, did I do that? I'm not that young. I mean, I did start. So just to like kind of give you the background, I discovered breathwork when I was 19 and I started training in it when I was 19 years old. So I did start out very young. So that's how, I've been doing this for so long.
So
you also, before we get into this, you also host a podcast, right?
Yes, I do. I have a podcast called Reclaiming Consciousness.
Reclaiming Consciousness.
That's a deep top title.
Yeah. I'm a Scorpio, so like everything about me is deep. You're not going to find a lot of like shallow waters when it comes to me.
Same. I'm also a Scorpio,
Are you
so
both?
that makes sense. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow, when's your birthday?
It was November 3rd. How about yours?
I'm the 5th.
Oh my gosh, you guys are really close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
that's probably why I was interested in you.
So Scorpios are deep thinkers?
Yes. Probably the deepest of the whole zodiac.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I wish I knew more about the zodiac. I think it's so fascinating. I really do. But that's not what we're here to talk about, even though if you know all that, we could talk about that another time. All right. I have to just ask you really quick. So you started breathwork at 19. What exactly is breathwork?
Yeah. So breathwork is a lot of things, right? And it really depends on what you learn and who you're learning it from and how it's taught. But so the breathwork that I teach is called conscious connected breathing. So it's really just learning to breathe in a certain rhythm consciously in a certain way to create a specific result. And I can go into that more, but it's really just consciously breathing in order to create growth and change. And, I can get into more specifically like what happens when you use the breath, but ultimately breath work itself is just using the breath to create an outcome, a result, or a change.
Well, okay, not to be a smart aleck, but isn't breathing intuitive? Shouldn't it be just part of the human existence, is breathing in and out? I mean, is that...
It is, but a lot of people don't do it consciously. And a lot of people will hold their breath or not fully breathe as a reaction to fear, usually. So if you think about if you get afraid, you look you hold your
Yeah, you get
breath,
stuck. Yeah.
right? So
Right.
it's about bringing a level of consciousness back to the breath and then using the breath to bring more life, more awareness, more consciousness into your being, into your experience. So it's interesting because it's something that people think, well, like, oh, everyone's breathing. Like,
Right.
how does that make a difference? But it's actually the simplest thing that creates profound changes in your life. It's just literally
Oh,
about learning how to use it in a different way than we're taught. Because we usually don't think about breathing, we just
No, it's
kind of
just a
take it for
natural thing.
granted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just using it in a much more conscious way.
So are you saying like this sounds stupid, but like all day long you're constantly thinking about breathing or certain points
No.
of the day?
Yeah, so the way that I teach breath work is it is, something that you would sit down and do for between 20 and 30 minutes and
Okay.
depending if you have a person with you or you're doing it on your own, or you would lay down and close your eyes and you use the breath work technique that I teach. And a lot of the breath work that I do is I create audio recordings where I talk you through the breath work. And a lot of my breath work will be around specific topics. So obviously, my work is very much geared towards trauma. So the breath is one of the key tools that I use to help people move through and release trauma. So I'll have breathwork sessions that are specifically geared towards specific topics around trauma, like your mother wound or the abandonment wound or something like that, where I'm talking you through breathing and bringing awareness to things you might not be aware of that are affecting your current life and helping you become aware of them, process them, and release them through the breath.
Okay, that I need to know really quick. What do you how do you define trauma? Because I feel like that is
Yeah.
a like, you ask a kid and trauma to them is like someone stole their lunchbox. You know what I mean? But if you ask
Hmm.
an adult, it could be huge. It could be somebody said something horribly mean to me versus somebody actually physically assaulted me. Like, where is there a right or wrong definition for it?
Well, the way that I define it is actually like perfect what you said because trauma is a matter of perspective and experience. So,
Okay.
when I was a school counselor, I would always find it so interesting that I could have two kids, siblings who come from the exact same home, exact same environment, same parents, same circumstances, and one of them is incredibly traumatized and one of them is seemingly fine, right? So,
Mhm.
it's really a matter of perspective. And the way that I define trauma is having an experience that is so overwhelming to you that you can't fully process it. And it's usually overwhelming on an emotional level or sensory level.
Oh.
So it's just so much that you can't fully process it. So you either like disassociate and kind of leave your body, or you just suppress it and it gets stuck within you and you don't fully process it. So then it'll show up as anxiety or depression or trouble sleeping or, recreating the same problem with your boss over and over and over again, or whatever it is. It'll show up in some way in your life to get your attention until you acknowledge it and reconcile it.
Oh, so it'll
mhm.
show up over and over and over?
Until you reconcile it, yes.
Really?
It just depends on like the way, like everyone's built kind of differently. And also, like, depending on what the situation was, like, some things that are really common are just typical anxiety, right? Which to me is a result of unprocessed emotions, but usually also one what I call core wound or one, moment or series of moments in time in young childhood where you didn't get what you needed, or you felt like you weren't important, you weren't acknowledged. There's some kind of void there that creates this belief that there's something wrong with you or you're not good enough. And until that's reconciled, it can get your attention through like general anxiety or general depression or, general not being able to sleep. Or it could surface in places like your relationships, where, say if you had a parent who was emotionally unavailable, you will recreate that inside of a relationship where you will be in a relationship with someone who's like that, or you might be that person in the relationship too and recreate the pattern that way. So it's not always like literal, but it's always the same energy. So those things
Hmm.
will come up inside your life for you to look at. It's just a matter of knowing how to know that that's happening and navigate it, which is what I teach people to do.
Wow.
Sorry, I know that's like a lot.
Well,
No, it's just
no,
like
go
it
ahead,
opens up so
Kanda.
many
Yeah,
avenues. We
me
just don't know
too.
which way to go. I think where I would like to start personally is I I understand the concept of what you're doing, the breath work and slowing down and really providing oxygen to your cells and so they can do what they're supposed to do. But how does that help with processing trauma? I don't mean to
Mhm.
sound ignorant. I just don't know.
No, I will explain it to you. So, essentially, what is happening with trauma, like I said, is something that happened to you that you could not fully process, right?
Hmm.
So, because you couldn't fully process it, it's there. It's holding an energetic signature in your cells, in your energy field, because you, when it happened, you said, no, 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 thank you. I'm not into this. I can't deal with this. So instead of you kind of digesting it almost the way you would digest food, right?
Hmm.
You
Right.
it moves through your system and out. That's how emotions are meant to be. You experience them, you feel them, and then they leave, right? That's the
Okay.
energy of an emotion. It's energy in motion. So it's supposed to just move. But if you say, no, I can't deal with this, I don't want to let this move, it stays there, right? So it's literally stuck in an energetic way in your energy field, in your cells. And it's holding like an energetic signature, a chemical signature in your cells. So when you use the breath, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the space to fully process whatever emotions are there that you haven't fully processed. So, what will happen is as you start to breathe and open up that space for yourself, the body has a natural intelligence. It knows what to do. You just have to give it the space and the time to do that. And that's what we're doing with the breath work is we are giving the body the space to do what it's supposed to do, which is process emotions, move energy, and integrate and heal. So any emotions that are not fully processed that are there, when you start breathing, they will start to process. So what happens is people might have memories that surface or emotions that surface
Okay.
or things that they just weren't aware of that were still impacting them. They will, those will come to the surface and they will move through it and shift it and integrate it. And then the other piece that happens during the breath is you will get access to the subconscious mind, because a lot of the symptoms or problems that we experience in our reality, including weight, right? Problems with weight are usually a result of something that's going on in the subconscious, right? So even when I mentioned like the core wound or the thing that happened when you were little, most people are not consciously walking around like, when I was 3, my mom said that I like, no one thinks like that, right? It's all in your subconscious. So when you use the breath, you get access to the subconscious mind, where all of that stuff exists. So you might just become aware of like a moment or an event or a feeling that is informing the experience you're having now that you weren't aware of. And now you can be aware of it so that you can learn how to consciously shift it or make a new decision or belief about how you want to move forward in life. So that is kind of how the emotional process works. And that's why it would be great for weight loss as well. Because what I found, I actually had a client who did my certification who was like a fitness coach, and she would have a lot of clients who, they were doing all the things, right? They
Yeah.
were eating what they're supposed to eat, they
Hmm.
were exercising, and they still weren't losing weight, right? And I know you can sometimes relate it to stress or whatever it is, but a lot of times it would be related to trauma and just holding on to something that they weren't ready to let go of or that they hadn't fully processed. So that can be a key component for some people. Not everybody like holds things the same way, but some
Right.
people will hold it as weight. So it's another great way to like access the subconscious to see, okay, what is it that I haven't looked at, that I haven't fully processed, that if I do, then things will shift and I'll feel lighter, or I'll be able to let this go and I'll be able to see things differently.
I have had some of my clients, they're like, I don't have an issue like this. I don't remember anything. Is that possible to have it at such a young
Yes.
age? Okay.
Pretty much nobody that I work with, like, is consciously aware of any of this stuff. Like, it doesn't, like, I mean, some people will be, like, some people will might have an awareness of, like, "Oh, my mom was this way," or "My dad left," or whatever, but, like, most people don't have a conscious awareness of what something like this could be, especially for the person who, just thinks like, "Oh, well, I had a pretty good childhood,
Right.
like,
Right.
nothing, like, particularly, like, bad happened." And I felt that way too. Like, my parents are lovely, amazing people. But that's not really the point. A lot of it is around the perception of, like, what you needed from your parents that they just didn't have the capacity to give to you, not because they didn't love you or not because they weren't doing their best. It was
Right.
just like something that you needed emotionally, or something that you needed, for them to be present or acknowledge you in a way that they just didn't have the capacity to do, which creates these voids or these places where you just feel hurt and that's not processed, or you feel like there's something wrong with you and that's not processed. So it's really like these deeper moments in time where there was some kind of wounding that was created that we're just not aware of, that gets played out and mirrored back to us in different areas of our
Wow.
lives.
Can
So is
you
it,
sorry, you go.
I have like 5 questions written down just from when you were talking before. Is it kind of like hypnosis?
Kind of, yeah, kind of. It's a little bit different,
Okay.
in the sense that, you're doing the breathing,
Okay.
and, I'm kind of talking you through just like making the connections between, your relationships with, your parents or certain people and how you feel now, right? So it is like hypnosis in the sense that you're going into more of like a deeper state and you're accessing the subconscious mind.
Okay.
But it's not, I don't call it hypnosis because it's more, the focus is more around the breathing and moving the energy that way, but it's similar to hypnosis.
Oh, okay. That makes,
You want to ask your couple of other questions? Okay, so what I actually wanted to know was, do you have a client story that you can tell us that will help us really like make this concrete for us? Because we're sort of talking in the abstract,
Hmm.
so it's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Let me think of like a really good one. Okay. All right, I got one. All right. So I had a client, and this is a great example because this is somebody who had already created a lot of success for herself, right? So it wasn't like one of these things that was like, oh my God, my whole life is falling apart. This is a more subtle thing, but this is such a great example
Mhm.
of how this stuff shows up. So she had created a really successful business, but she could not get past a certain point, right? Like she couldn't get past a certain income level, and she kept having these like urges to lower her prices even though she didn't want to, and she was kind of at war with herself about like how to move forward and grow her business. And every time she got to the certain point, she just like couldn't move forward, right? And she had asked a ton of business coaches, like 5 years of asking different people, trying to implement different strategies. Nothing was working. She just kept getting back to the same place.
Okay.
So she was like, this has to be trauma related because it's not like tactical, right? It's not like
Well, I would have
strategic.
never thought it was ever trauma related, something like that.
Right, but, like, she knows a lot
Yeah.
about my work and all of that,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
she had, like, already implemented so many other things, so,
Okay.
like, it wasn't tactical or strategic, it was
Mhm.
literally like, she could feel there was, like, something else going on
Like a
that she couldn't
fear.
access. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, then when I started working with her, the other interesting thing, like I mentioned with a lot of people, is, like, she didn't have really any trauma, right, that she could put her finger on. And she also had a really wonderful relationship with her mom pretty much from growing up, like from the beginning, right? But I could just tell, I knew that it was something with her mom, even though like she presented as she had a great relationship with her mom. And this is really interesting. So, after diving deeper and deeper with her, what I discovered is that her mother had a very strong pattern of self-abandonment, right? So she would, and do you know what I mean when I say self-abandonment? It's
No.
kind of like you always do everything for everyone else at your own expense, right?
Oh,
So it's
That's what
basically
that
like,
means?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay, go on. Kamna.
okay.
Sorry. Go
and
on.
and the abandonment wound and like self-abandonment, this is something I talk about all the time because it comes from a lot of different places and it's very common, right? But for this particular client, her mom had a very strong abandonment wound and would self-abandon. So her mom was constantly like doing everything for everyone else and then burning herself out and never taking care of herself, right? So with this client just witnessing her mom behave this way, she unknowingly kind of absorbed and took on these same patterns, right? So through her business, the way it was showing up is she was constantly trying to like save everybody at her own expense. So she kept wanting to lower her prices and give everything away for free and didn't know why, because she intellectually was like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I've been in
Right.
business for a long time. I know how to make money. Like, I know this isn't the right strategy, but she like compulsively wanted to do it anyway. So, what I was able to pinpoint for her is that she had actually like taken this on from her mom. So even though it wasn't necessarily related to her relationship with her mom, because that was what was modeled to her and what she
Right.
witnessed, she adopted that behavior simply through modeling. And this is another thing that's really important to understand about trauma or these like beliefs that we take on is a lot of it won't necessarily be something that you like is from your relationship with your parents, but just that you witnessed and that was modeled to you as just like, this is how we behave. Like, this is how I relate. This is what living is. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, where we don't even realize that we're doing it. So, this is a pattern that she took on from her mother, which as soon as I figured out what it was, I helped her clear it. And then the next week, she made $20,000
Wow.
right after we cleared it because the pattern was gone and she was able to like completely show up differently. She launched something new. Like it was incredible the way that we were really able to shift it so
Oh my God.
powerfully. So this is the kind of stuff that I see all the time because once you're kind of able to pinpoint as to like why these certain things are happening that seem like they're very, circumstantial or like have sort of like a practical answer, there's usually some kind of deeper energetic component to it that you just don't realize is there. And especially with someone like her who's kind of like tried all of these things and
Right.
nothing worked. That is, that's a great example of just how this work works.
Do you think that some of this can show up in like disordered eating or um, just weight issues or struggles with weight? Do you see
Yes,
that?
absolutely, for sure. I think that, first of all, I struggled with an eating disorder when I was in my late teens, early 20s, which is actually what led me to discover breath work because
Okay.
I was looking for answers because I didn't understand why I was so miserable because I like had a somewhat good upbringing. Like nothing really happened to me that was bad, but I really struggle with that. And that's what led me to discovering breath work. So, and it helped me heal on many levels. But I think that for each person's individual circumstance, it can show up a little bit differently. I think that struggles with eating is the result of a lot of different things. It can be, I know for me, it was literally my father making comments about my weight, and that was enough to like kind of throw me into that. I know for other people, it can be like the emotional eating piece or like not eating because you're emotional. I think it
Mhm.
really depends on how the person just internalizes that and how they kind of use food or don't use food. And then I also think there's like the way that people can put weight on to protect themselves. I think that's a really common thing with like any
Oh,
kind of physical or sexual abuse. People can, kind of want to put on weight to have like a barrier between them and other people. That can be
Mhm.
another reason why people put on weight. And I think just trauma that hasn't been fully processed can be held in the body in the form of weight. I really think that that's true as well. And I also think that once you start to develop a deeper relationship and connection with yourself, and you start treating yourself in a way that is more honoring of who you are and what you need and what you truly desire, instead of just doing what makes other people happy or what you think you're supposed to do, then I think that your body will naturally respond to that too, as you start making choices that are just more in alignment with what you really want. And I've seen that for people a lot too, when it's like they just start getting healthier in the way they're relating to themselves and the way they're
Mhm.
honoring themselves, then their body just starts to naturally look more healthy. And that might include losing weight. So I think there's a lot of different factors to it, but I definitely think it's related. And it's usually more on a case by case basis to say the exact way that it's related,
Right.
Sure.
but it definitely is.
Well, I mean, I truly believe that most people that have a weight problem or eating problem, it is because of something. Like I think there
Yeah,
is something there. I mean, yes, there is
for
some part of it
sure.
that is medical, and there are some people that have a harder time losing it, but I think it does start somewhere. So I'm so fascinated with like the whole trauma part of what you're saying is like there's something that might have triggered how am I making sense? I'm not, am I?
Yes.
Yeah,
You know
there's
Yes.
what I
like
mean?
an original
An
reason
original
why.
reason why I started eating cookies, or I
Mhm.
stopped caring about what I looked like, or something along those lines. But I have a couple questions is, how do you like, do you help me figure out if I have one? Is that what, like, would someone would go to you and see what it is?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I mean, obviously, there's different ways that people can work with me. But if you are somebody that feels like there is a reason why something keeps happening over and over again that you haven't been able to figure out, and you've
Yeah.
used all of the tactical things, like for example, if it's around weight loss, you've
Right.
exercised and you eat right and you do all of the things, and it still feels like there's a missing piece. That's where I would come in. And then even with women, like I described with my client in business, or a lot of the women I work with are kind of in this place where they feel stuck, like they want to move forward with starting their own business or something along those lines, and it feels hard to like take that leap and move forward in the direction that they really want to go. It's
Mhm.
usually something like this that is stopping them. So that's a lot of the clients I work with too, where they just feel like they want to move forward, but there's something stopping them that they just
Yeah.
can't put their finger on.
Can you have several things going on?
Yeah, so the thing is
Right?
I like to um yes, the answer is yes, but I also don't want to overwhelm you because
Okay.
it kind of happens in stages, right? So like when I first start working with someone, I'll be able to pinpoint really quickly like what is that thing, right? But then as we go through the process and as we move forward, and people who decide to work with me for longer periods of time, there will be other things that will start to surface, because the way that it works with trauma work is you are only shown what you're ready to see at certain times, right? So, and it's not to say that you can't have amazing results and permanent change quickly. It's just that as you keep going through the process, there will just be other things that will come into your awareness and other things that you'll uncover over time, and as you grow in different ways. Like, for example, if you decide that you're going to majorly expand your business, you're going to go in a different direction, there's most likely going to be new stuff that comes up in the face
Mm.
of this expansion, right? So, yes, there will be different things, but there's usually one core thing that's at the bottom of it, and it'll have different flavors on top, if that makes sense.
So if someone comes to you and they're working through their core trauma, does that again, this is going to sound not very smart, but does that mean they're like cured, or do they have to keep working on it?
Oh,
Does
good
it show up
question.
in different ways, or is it going to
Yeah.
resurface?
So basically what I teach you, and people can decide to work with me in whatever capacity they want, from like just having one call or a smaller kind of like training with me to, working with me for years if they want to. And either way, they're going to get some kind of result, right? But I think what we're really doing is finding out what that thing is and then how it shows up in your life, so that when you come up against it, like when it gets triggered, you know how to navigate it, right? So the way that I describe it is like, there is a part of you, your inner child, that's wounded, right? That inside of a certain situation gets triggered. And you might think it's about, oh, my partner just said something really rude to me. But really, and that might not be not true, but I'm just saying, like, you think it's about that, right? But really what's happening is your inner child is being triggered, the part of you that feels not good enough or not valued or whatever it is. So instead of making it about your partner, I show you how to address what's actually happening, which is that your inner child is wanting to be acknowledged and reconciled. So I show you how to address what's actually happening, and then take yourself through what I call my inner child healing process, where you kind of take yourself through giving your inner child what she needs, and then coming back to like this neutral space and ultimately being able to hold your power inside of those kind of situations and circumstances, instead of getting triggered and thinking it's about the other person. So
It's so
that's
much
a lot.
easier though. It's so much easier to say he's
Oh
being
my God,
rude.
it's so much easier.
It's
I always make this joke of like, I could get like a million people on my side as to why my husband is the villain, but like it
Yes.
really does nothing for me personal growth
Okay,
wise. But I
fine.
get it. It's so
oh my
much
God, I
easier to make
so
him the
relate to that.
problem.
Wow.
It's so much easier to be, I hate to use this word, but a little bit in a victim role and say it's
Yeah.
happening to me, instead of
Mhm.
saying I take responsibility for my reaction to this.
Totally. And then the thing too is like, yes, it's easier in the moment, but then at the same time, it doesn't get you anywhere. So that's what I always
Right.
say about like the
Right.
victim mentality, is like, it's not to say that you weren't a victim in certain situations. Like, I don't want to take that away from anyone, because there are real
Sure. Of
situations and
course.
Right.
circumstances where people are victims. But when you see it through that lens, it just doesn't contribute to you taking your power back and you growing. So looking at it through that lens, this is the way that you take your power back and you grow from the situation, instead of staying stuck in that place where you are the victim essentially.
This is fascinating,
It's so
honestly.
fascinating. Uh, So, okay, when you first talked about breath work, Kamna was talking about this before, before we even booked the day with you. I was thinking breath work for pain. Do you do that? As I know,
Mm.
changing topic, but is
Yeah,
that a thing
yeah, yeah.
too?
Well, yeah, it is. And it can definitely help with pain. I mean, to me, the way that I look at pain is, usually there's some sort of emotional root component to it, right? Especially chronic pain, right? I'm not
Okay.
talking about if you like, fell and skinned your knee. I'm talking about like
Right.
chronic, like back pain or something like that. There's
Yeah.
usually some kind of deeper emotional component to that. So
Oh,
that's how I would look at pain. And breath work is a great way to shift that, and also just get in touch with what is the root of that, or what message is this pain trying to tell me. I actually have a longtime client who's amazing. She was a physical therapist, and she went through my certification program, and she now uses breath work and a lot of my tools mixed with her own to help people read what she calls the secret language of the body, which is like how your pain is communicating with you, to
Oh,
understand like what message your pain is telling you, and how you can like decode that through, being able to get in touch with your body through breath work and all of that. So I
can
wow.
do
you
think that,
can you speak on that a little bit more? Because I think a lot of people would be really interested in that.
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
yeah, for sure. So, the idea is that your pain is a message, right? So it's not something that you just have to like, okay, how do I make this go away? Or it just being like a physical thing, right? Like, oh, my spine isn't aligned or whatever. And not to say that's not the problem, but typically it's looking at it through the lens of, okay, well, if I'm having stomach issues, for example, I've always had chronic stomach issues, so I'm just using that as an example. It's like, what is my body trying to tell me, or what is the message as to like what is out of balance through what is going on with my stomach, right? And like for me, it probably would have been something like, well, all of this stuff going on is like hard for me to digest, or the fact that I feel responsible for everyone around me is like hard for me to digest, or whatever it is. So it's like stuff like that where you're looking at it more
Wow.
through the lens of like what's happening on like a deeper energetic level that's continuing to cause this thing happening over and over again.
Very interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Um, what I would like to do now is I have a couple of questions for you. I'm sure Leah does too. And then I would like to take into our bonus episode and talking about the spiritual
Wait,
mentoring and the
we've already been talking for 40 minutes.
almost, yes.
Oh my gosh.
That went
So
by really
if
fast.
Oh my
if
gosh, it
you're
did. Sorry.
okay for us to extend the conversation into our bonus episode. So I just wanted to ask you
Sorry.
if you could explain on a more basic level about the actual breath work.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just explain it and I'll show you what it looks like. So
Okay.
the breath work that I teach is called conscious connected breathing. So it's super simple. It's literally just breathing in and out through the mouth in a circular pattern with no space between the inhale and the exhale. So the whole point is you're just finding your own rhythm with the breath. So it's not about forcing anything. It's not about, making sure you do it right. It's literally just dropping into this rhythm that your body kind of already has. So you're just tuning into your body and creating that space that I was talking about where the body knows what to do.
Okay.
And once you do it, you eventually just kind of find this rhythm and it starts to happen without you thinking about it. So this is what it looks like.
Okay.
So usually when you do it too, you're laying down. And I'll share with you a breathwork session that you guys can download and try. But you're
Okay.
laying down with your eyes closed and you want to be relaxed and be in a place where you're not going to be interrupted. And then this is what it looks like. So literally just so simple.
So
it almost looks like you're doing a fast breathing.
So for the people who are
No.
listening, you were breathing in and out with your mouth slightly open and your eyes closed.
Yes. Yes. And you want to breathe in and out of your mouth because that way you get more air. Like the nose is not as much air goes in. And the whole point is like we want to get more oxygen moving in and out of the body to help you process and also just gain momentum towards healing and growth and where you're going. And it might have looked fast. It's not super fast, but you
Okay.
kind of want to just like find this rhythm with it. So it's more about just you're consciously deeply inhaling and deeply exhaling. Not so deep though, but it's more about that rhythm where you're just having air continuously circulating in and out of the body.
Wow.
It seems so simple, but
It does,
It's
but
very simple. But I have to say, like, there's a lot of people now who teach a lot of different breath work types of breath work. And this is the most simple and it's very effective. And people always tell me, like, this is so simple and I can't believe how effective it is. And it's really like not you don't have to work really hard or force anything. It's very accessible.
yeah, and it seems like it's almost something that you could do everywhere. I know you said laying down is probably with
Yeah,
your
but
eyes
you can
closed.
do it
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah, you can do it anywhere whenever you want.
Oh my
where
God.
can people find you?
So you can find me on my Instagram, Alyse_breathes, my website, AlyseBreathes.com. Also, my podcast, Reclaiming Consciousness. That's a great way to find me too. And you can also download a breathwork session from my Instagram or my website so you can try it.
Okay, so if somebody from Cleveland area wanted to work with you, do you do it over Zoom?
Yeah, everything I do is over
Oh,
Zoom.
okay.
I don't really do
Oh,
anything in person.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Okay.
So
wow.
all my work is online. So yes, you
And
can absolutely work with me.
this is stupid, but it's not anything that's covered by insurance yet, is it?
No,
No.
unfortunately, no.
Gosh, that would be amazing if they get on board with that, you know?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
but I
would.
do have a very wide range of, like, ways to work with me that are very affordable,
Oh,
and
that's
then up
good.
the scale, so yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Yeah.